While everybody's talking about peaceful negotiations, a potential resolution, or a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia, Ukrainian citizens in major cities have been hit again with one of the biggest drone attacks since the beginning of the war. Today, with Ruslan Bortnik, political scientist, political expert, and the director of Ukrainian Institute of Politics, I'm going to discuss what stands behind those drone attacks and why Ukrainian citizens are being terrorized, while Russia is initiating and proposing peaceful negotiations in Istanbul. Ruslan, what do you make of that attack? Why Russia is trying to terrorize Ukrainian citizens while they're initiating peaceful negotiation, peaceful proposition, and simply versus focusing on the front line? Why they're trying to terrorize the Ukrainian citizens with those massive drone attacks?
Hello, James. Yes, it was a really horrible drone attack because it lasted 3 nights. 3 nights, one per one. We had a huge air alarm. We heard a lot of rockets over our heads and drones over our heads. It was really, really scary, really horrible. I'm in Kyiv all the time of the war, but it was, I think, the biggest air attack beginning from the beginning of the war. It looked like Russia was trying to terrify it, to make Ukraine scary, to make some kind of signal towards Ukraine and West about the negotiation process. And it looks like
terrify specifically the regular Ukrainian citizens, because drone attacks do not serve any military purpose. Is that correct?
No, not at all. Because drone attacks is also targeting different infrastructure and military goals. For example, in Kyiv, one of the main goals was airport Antonov, which also is a place when Ukraine has a lot of military installments, and but it's in the middle of the city, and of course some of these drones were not very accurate, and
Yes.
they targeted and civil houses, buildings, and a lot of victims. A few dozens of Ukrainian citizens were killed and injured during this attack. Moreover, there is also a question of working anti-aircraft system. All this mortal danger for ordinary citizens in Ukraine. I think we need to evaluate this situation in the wider circumstance. After the negotiation in Istanbul, it looks like Russia is trying to raise the stakes in this negotiation process. Russia made a huge airstrike for Ukraine, drones and rockets. Russia again stated the question of delegitimization of Ukrainian president. Ministry of Internal Foreign Affairs of Russia, Lavrov, said, we don't know with whom we can sign the deal because Ukrainian president is not legitimized. Now, Russia also raised the question of existence of Soviet Union. Is a law forum in St. Petersburg, and then later the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia stated that Soviet Union is not dismissed yet, because the procedure of dismissing of dissolving Soviet Union was not achieved, and so it means the Soviet Union still exists. It means that Ukrainian-Russian war, it's a part of civil war,
internal conflict.
Civil war inside of Soviet Union. It's not the war between the countries. And also Russia has stated the question of buffer zone officially. Putin and some few official persons stated the question of buffer zone. It looks like Russia is trying to raise the stakes. But if you are talking only about the air strike toward Ukraine, it also was not only a signal, but also was a revenge, because Ukraine pushed a lot of pressure of the Russian anti-aircraft system, air defense system during the 3 days before the Russian strikes. Ukraine issued more than 1,000 drones on the territory of Ukraine, including the Moscow, including the St. Petersburg, and my main Russian regions. And it was also a kind of revenge in eyes of Russian society from Russian army on Ukraine also.
Before we move into the buffer zone, because that's an interesting perspective as well, and the raising of the question of the Soviet Union that is still existing, I want to go back to Trump's reaction over that drone attack. He have said in his post that Putin has gone mad. What's interesting here, but that those are still just rhetorics. We don't see any additional aid packages, assistance to Ukraine from the United States, except what was already pre-approved by Biden administration. What do you think Trump is trying to do? He's trying to remain neutral while the war is escalating. The sides are not able to negotiate any potential resolution or a ceasefire, and the war keeps going on, and people keep dying, and drone attacks are going to continue to happen. But Trump is trying to remain neutral. My first question, I guess, is he supported by the Americans to continue remaining neutral? Is that kind of a new reality that we have to accept, that the West is getting tired of the Ukrainian-Russian conflict, and no matter what victims or what tragedy they're going to see, they're trying to separate? Or Trump is still hoping that he will be able to negotiate anything with the Russian Federation, with Putin, and therefore he's still trying to remain neutral despite the fact that we have more victims and we have more attacks?
To be absolutely clear, we need to say that Trump said he has gone absolutely crazy. He was talking about the Putin. I'm showing now this post in our video. But if you are going down, you can see that there is some bad words about Zelensky and, of course, about Biden, as usual.
Yeah.
But talking about Zelensky, Trump also said that everything out of his mouth causes problems. I think
it does. It does. He have been escalating a lot of situation lately.
Yeah, maybe, but for me, I'm not a native English speaking person. For me, but it looks very rude. Everything out of his mouth causes problems.
It is rude. It is rude. He's definitely trying to diminish him.
Yeah, I think Trump is very disappointed because he believed that after Istanbul, both sides would decrease the level of hostilities and would start some kind of negotiation process and would find some model of ceasefire, free of frozen this conflict. But it didn't happen. Yeah, it didn't happen, and moreover, it looks like both sides are trying to raise the stakes in this situation. And Trump is very disappointed, but no one is going to leave this negotiation process. So it means all this rhetoric, all these doings of the sides, it means that all this is only trade methods. And Ukraine and Russia and also United States in the face of the Trump are trying to push each other, are trying to get as much higher position as they can, are trying to diminish or humiliate the other side in this moment. But no one is leaving negotiation process. It's very important. So it means that Trump is a real evaluation from the Trump side of this situation is still the same like it was in previous time. He's trying to balance between the sides. He's trying to look like a mediator, not an ally of Ukraine, for example, or not a victim of Ukraine or Russia, or not an enemy of Ukraine and Russia in this moment. He's trying to be out of this process. He's trying to balance between the sides, and he's trying to push both sides to a lower level of hostilities.
You've mentioned before the situation with the buffer zone. I think one of the Russian officials, Medvedev, have said that the buffer zone can potentially go all the way to the end of the western border of Ukraine, meaning they want to occupy the entire Ukraine. My question is here.
No, not exactly. It also could be a part of buffer zone. It's zone without the control over which one of the sides. It means buffer zone in generally, it's a gray zone. It's something between the military or blocks or economical blocks of big powers. Not exactly.
But did he say that he want to see potentially the border of that buffer zone all the way to the western cities of Ukraine?
I think Russia is interested to have a flexible border with this buffer zone because it helps, it gives the Russia a chance to to save the influence to the West.
Yes.
Because of the risk of any new aggression, of any new security problems, and so on. But this post statement of Medvedev is interesting for me from other side. Does it mean that Russia is also ready to leave Ukraine alone, without behind the Russian zone of influence? Or is Russia ready to make a deal with the West when Ukraine will be not in the Western, but nor in the Russian zone of influence? But it is exact meaning of buffer zone, without no influence, or a zone of competition between the sides, but not including this part of land of the to some part of
to any political player.
Yes, to Western or to Eastern world. Exactly. It's also very interesting. Maybe it's not only a danger towards Ukraine or the West, but maybe it's some kind of proposition towards the West to accept another model of peace settlement. Yeah.
Ruslan, if we can move to the situation on the front line, there has been a lot of major changes on the front line. What is currently happening? Most of the situation that we can observe is now on the eastern side of Ukraine, because we no longer have Kursk. The southeast is barely moving, but a lot of movement is happening right now on the eastern front line in Ukraine. What is happening there? If we have any movements, what are the movements, and what risks those potential Russian offensive the spring summer can carry for Ukrainian army and Ukrainian country?
Maybe we can say now that Russia started a summer offensive operation, even taking into account that we are talking about the end of the spring. But Russia started a summer offensive operation, and the movement of Russian forces on Ukrainian lands due the last 2 weeks achieved the highest level from December 2024. For example, now Russia is controlling 113 square kilometers of Ukrainian lands. But if we count down for 10 days, for example, only for 10 days, we can see that Russia captured near 250 square kilometers for the last 10 days of Ukrainian lands. It's a highest level from December 2024. The biggest Russian movements are now around the Pokrovsk and Mirnograd cities in Donbass. Russia is trying to surround the city from the northeast and from the southwest. Also, Russia is trying to move to the Konstantinivka city, and Russia is trying to go to advance in the western part of Velikaya Novoselivka city. The Donbass is the main place of hostilities now, and Russia is moving, and somewhere Russia is moving very fast. Very fast. There is a significant risk and crisis for Ukrainian military forces now in the center of the Donbass. And another problem, second hottest point, it's a Sumska Oblast in the border with the Kursk region. Now, Ukrainian offensive operation on the Kursk region became the Ukrainian defensive operation on the Sumy region, and Russia captured a big part of Sumy Oblast is 67 square kilometers for now, and Russia is trying to move forward to the capital of this region, to the city of Sumy, there is only 30 kilometers around to the city. So we have these two biggest advances of Russian forces in the Ukrainian front. But at the same time, we have a lot of rumors. And due to these rumors, Russia will be ready to send to Ukraine nearest days the Russian propositions, Russian memorandum about the end of the war, and Russia will unite this message, this letter to Ukraine, with the starting of a huge offensive operation. Russia is going to continue the negotiation and offensive operation, which will be methods of influence of pushing Ukraine at the same time.
What are you expecting to see in that memorandum?
I think it will be divided in two parts. The first part, it will be about the ceasefire. And we will see there the Russian demands on the ceasefire. It could be something like to stop the Western support to Ukraine or to stop the mobilization in Ukraine. And the second part, it will be a bigger part. It will be our general Russian demands on Ukraine and the West about Ukraine. We are talking about demands about 5 Ukrainian regions. We are talking about neutral or unblocked status toward Ukraine. We are talking about changes of internal Ukrainian humanitarian policy and everything which Russia stated like reasons, like conditions to end the war in previous time. So it will be from the two parts. Ukraine also already sent toward Western partners our memorandum, our draft memorandum. Kit Kellogg said that United States achieved this memorandum, and I'm sure that there are also unacceptable for Russia Ukrainian demands now, and it will be very hard to find something common in the situation when the states, both sides, are stated they're unacceptable for each other conditions to end the war.
Saying that that memorandums from both sides will have unacceptable points for both sides. Additionally, we're seeing that negotiations are not as fast and productive as we have expected them to see. On top of that, we see the drone attacks. On top of that, we see the summer offensive that Russia has initiated that is quite successful so far. What is your perspective over that situation? How do you think the war will develop? Can we say that negotiations have failed or they're just stuck? Can we say that Russia is planning to increase stakes, not just verbally, but physically trying to take over new Ukrainian regions? Can we say that Ukraine is going to start losing more and more territory and political stability because of lack of support from the United States? How do you see the situation developing, let's say, in the next 3 to 6 months, if we consider all these aspects?
We are not able to predict the future, of course. We have not enough data to calculate this future.
Especially when everything is also so dynamic.
Yeah, no one has this data. No, not even in the Ukrainian or Russian or Western headquarters, they have this data. But it looks for me now that we are standing in front of a new escalation, negotiation escalation, and military escalation. We will be in the situation of continuation of negotiation and the war at the same time. Nearest months. Ukraine and Russia are not ready to go to each other to some significant concessions. And without these concessions to each other, the peace, even ceasefire, is impossible. It could be possible only in the situation when the West, European Union or the United States could be ready to some concessions toward Ukraine and Russia, but West is not ready also to go to the deep concessions toward Ukraine and Russia. So we have a cycle, we have a deadlock, we have strategical thinking deadlock in this situation. And without changing this balance, without readiness of one of the sides to go to deep concessions, this situation could not be resolved on nearest months. In any case, the negotiation process is very necessary for Ukraine. sometimes this negotiation process may decrease the level of hostilities, may save some lives. It helps to change the prison people, to bring them back to their
To bring
families.
people back home to their families. Yeah.
And it's also very important. But without changing this strategical deadlock, we will not be able to find the end of the war in the nearest future.
From your perspective, do you think that's a war between nations, between the Ukrainian and Russian nation, or that's a war between the elites, between the president of Russia and the presidents of Ukraine? I'm asking that question because I'm curious if Zelensky and Putin will be ready to sacrifice their reputation and go on unpopular compromises. Do you think they will be able to stop the war or come to any reasonable, peaceful resolution? Or it doesn't matter because people are so angry at each other on both sides that despite the fact that leaders will be ready to do significant compromises, the conflict simply won't end because people will just continue fighting each other. Like they might revenge for their loved ones that were killed, and so on and so forth. What is your perspective?
To be honest, every war is a war about elites mostly. It's very rarely we have a war between the nations. Very rarely. Almost 90% of the war, it's war about elites. Of course, on the goals of elites. And the problem of this war, for this moment, is that for both leaders, Ukrainian and Russian leaders, is more acceptable and safer to continue this situation like it is than to change something. Than to go to some compromises and especially concessions toward each other.
And lose their face in front of their nations.
And they are not able to predict what could happen after they will go to such a significant steps. So they don't know, will they lose the face or something like this. But this future with change in the nowadays direction is more unpredictable. That the future is just keeping this nowadays very bloody, very unhuman direction. But I'm sure that if the elites will find the solution, the level of
anger,
the level of hate between the nations will not be such high like nowadays propaganda is trying to show for us.
It will start cooling down.
Yes, because this war has only political goals, not territorial, not ethnical, only political, not resourceful, but only political goals. Of course, there will be a lot of people which will be looking for revenge, people which lost their relatives and so on. But we hadn't in this war ethnic killing. We had this war something like which is making a very deep for centuries angry between the people toward each other. We had a lot of military crimes. We had a lot of killed people, but the bigger part of killed people it's the militaries, not civilians. Be careful. It's very, very, very special war. If we are talking about the huge war, when the bigger part of suffers and loses, it's a civilians people. We have another war. We have one or even one civilian till 3 or even 5 soldiers killed in this war. So everything is possible to come over. But we need a very strong political will and we need a very strong external support for it.
Ruslan, thank you so much for your comments and analysis. And thank you guys for everybody who's watching us. And if you like that work and if you like Ruslan's analysis and the work that we're doing, please subscribe to our channel. Leave any comments that you would like us to discuss or include in the next episodes. Thank you again, and we'll be back with next updates in a week.
Thank you.